Carried across the water and into a strange land. A people so hated, our bondage they all planned. Stripped of our identity, they made us slaves. Tossing Hebrews over the waters of mass grave. The Jewish, Ham and Arabs came together in allegiance. Condition reminiscent of our time back in Egypt. Waiting for somebody to save us from Pharaoh. No allies on the side to convince him to let us go. Now we in astonishment known by proverbs. Addressing us as niggas and calling us bywords. Willie Lynch used to conquer the foundation. Queen watching the king suffer from mutilation. Civil rights movement, now we fighting for freedom. Now we asking massa for favors as if we need them. Black Wall Street, our history in the making. They burned it to the ground to prevent an overtaking. They only interested in annihilating our nation. If they can kill you off, then it's mass incarceration. We left our homeland to escape persecution. Now we leave the state to evade prosecution. The land of the free and your life is worth nothing. You in the Hunger Games and they got Katniss on the hunting. You need to understand the plan and realize the man in the stand is plotting all our demise. Condition to call him voice to handle our disputes. Hands up in the air and we telling them not to shoot. All we can do is protest and call out their corruption. Our babies out here suffering cause they all lacking protection. Little black boys are the only ones they raping. Only thing on their mind is total emasculation. Little black girls gotta face dejection from the whole world, and her brothers suffer rejection. The government ain't for us, fam, we in this by ourselves. Selfish mentality, every man is for himself. Mama's up in the clinic killing her own seed, while Papa's out in the street fulfilling his own needs. It's a shame we are people so blinded by vain ambition. Crabs in a barrel fighting to do the masses bidding. What you don't understand, we all up in his kitchen. You gon' cook first, trying to kill your competition. Nobody can feel your pain better than your brother. We should be encouraging and supporting one another. We gotta shift our gears and adjust our whole agenda. It's righteousness we lack and that's the cause of our dilemma. He promised he scatter us from the land of different places. Now we in our feelings with grief all up on our faces. We need to stop playing and make it back to the Father. Try to be obedient sons and modest daughters, but now your sons are holler, your girls sold for wine. Don't try to look for Moses, the intervention's divine. Should've listened back then when we was up in Canaan. Now we looking up to the sky, trying to blame him. Deliverance and freedom lies within our bro Yeshaya. We gotta come together and give praise to a higher. The times gon' get worse than what we can withstand. We gotta stop the madness and try to keep the commands. Hey y'all, everything we going through, it ain't by coincidence. We in this condition because we transgressed against the Father. We gotta come back harder. We gotta keep the commandments, and come back harder, and listen to the Father. Come back harder, come back harder. We gotta keep the commandments and come back harder and listen to the Father. Come back harder, come back harder. We gotta keep the commandments, and come back harder and listen to the Father, to your Father. Come back harder, come back harder. We gotta keep the commandments and come back harder and listen to the Father.